Our first speaker is Mr. Mike McConnell. Mr. Mike McConnell is a senior executive advisor and former vice chairman of Booz Allen Hamilton, where his primary roles includes serving the firm's leadership team and leading Booz Allen's rapidly expanding cyber business. Bringing us this morning the future of cybersecurity, threats, implications, and strategies, let us welcome Mr. Mike McConnell.
Good morning, everyone. Delighted to be here. Let me tell you the real reason I'm up here. It's not because I was vice chairman of Booz Allen Hamilton, world's oldest consulting company, established in 1914, so it's over 100 years old. That's not the reason I'm here this morning. I had the privilege of serving several tours of duty in the U.S. military and as a civilian. And those tours of duty included being the intelligence officer for General Colin Powell during the first Gulf War, serving as the director of the National Security Agency for 4 years, and serving as the director of national intelligence for the Bush administration and a small portion of the Obama administration. And that opportunity to serve allowed me to have a perspective on this topic that's perhaps a little bit unique. And so what I thought I would do this morning is share with you a perspective. This is my topic, but I want to really talk about implications for the future. I've probably given 1,000 briefings or discussions on threat. I suspect most of you, although this is a young audience, I suspect most of you have heard 500 briefings on the threat. So let's just assume that the threat's real. I would describe it how it's changed. It used to be keep the bad guys out. Today's understanding needs to be the bad guys are inside. So it has become an insider issue. Whether the perpetrator is on the outside and they figure out how to get inside your network, or it's someone who actually lives and works inside the network. That's the main issue. It used to be perimeter security. Today the issue is more about detecting malicious hardware or activity and then doing something about it. A couple of just notes. Most large businesses, and I'm more familiar with the United States, generally know they have been penetrated and are losing valuable information somewhere about 3 months after they've been penetrated. Once they know they have been penetrated, it's usually a month or 2 months, 60 days before they're able to clean up the mess. So we're talking about penetration to clean up 5 to 6 months. That's on average. The cost of that, last time I looked at the average cost, was about $12 million. So this is an important issue and a big issue. Some corporations have been penetrated to compromise 70 million accounts, 100 million accounts, and I'm sure you saw the news recently that Yahoo was compromised to 500 million accounts, personally identifiable information for citizens around the world. But I'm not going to dwell on that so much. I want to ask you a question that you may or may not know the answer to, and you'll say, where is he going with this? Here's my question. How many bombs did it take to destroy a target in World War II? Now, most of you here, unlike me, you didn't live in that time frame, and you have no idea, and you never thought about it. Well, the answer is 600. If you had a target, you want to destroy that target, you had to drop 600 bombs to be sure you could get the target. Well, fast forward, how many in the Vietnam conflict? Well, we took it from 600 to 300. That's a big improvement, but still 300 just to destroy one target. Then came Desert Shield, Desert Storm. How many bombs to destroy a target? One. One target, one bomb. What happened? What caused that dramatic change of efficiency? I don't want to talk about warfare's efficiency and so on, but this is an efficiency situation. What happened is the U.S. focused on a way to gain advantage in a military context. And the focus was on accuracy and precision. And oh, by the way, along the way, we focused on stealth. So in Desert Storm, when we were facing 500,000 troops buried in the desert, and our mission was to move them out of the desert, out of Kuwait, back into Iraq, it was amazingly easy to do because we had such overwhelming military superiority. We had intelligence sensors that could locate with great accuracy a target. And we had laser-guided bombs that could use that targeting information with incredible accuracy within 6 or 8 inches on the globe's surface to destroy a target. So the whole idea became a revolution in military affairs that sort of changed the way we think about it and impacted us greatly. Now, what does that got to do with our topic this morning? A lot of those advances were made possible by information processing. Sensors that could see information that could be processed, sort out the data, discriminate a target from a non-target. So all of that processing was incredible. The U.S. military started to think about it as a revolution in military affairs, domination of the battlefield, and so on. So that reflected in our thinking and how we were progressing in the context of military operations. Well, business and governments started to adopt this similar thinking and approach, and it tended to revolutionize the way we live. Now, I would venture to guess most of you are from Singapore, and what I would assert is your nation, more than any other nation on the globe, is digitally dependent. So how we saw that revolution in military affairs, precision, stealth, accuracy, Singapore has used the same technology to become the 3rd largest banking capital in the world, a telecommunications hub that is the crossroads between East and West, and of course the port facility for the incredible amount of cargo that moves through this area, which is processed in Singapore. So Singapore as a nation has benefited from this revolution in speed and processing. Just as a side note, the U.S. military, that's where I came from, that's what I tend to think about, that's what I associate with. The U.S. military has just made another decision. If you look at the U.S. military since World War II, there have been basically 3 decisions that were made. And we would think of them in terms of an offset. Offset, how do we have advantage over a military adversary? The first offset was boom. Boom. Nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, the ability to deliver a boom very fast before the opposition. So think of it as boom. What was the second offset? I just described that for you earlier. It was precision, stealth, and accuracy. Well, where are we today? What is the U.S. military focused on today about the offset for the future? And it's one word, speed. It's speed of processing. So what the U.S. military will be focused on is how do you protect that infrastructure from being penetrated, and how do we harness it for military advantage given that we have a conflict that we may be engaged in the future. Now, I want to take a little bit of a detour and cause you to think about your society and the dilemma that you're going to face. First of all, I'm going to start with a fairly esoteric subject, encryption. And I'd venture to guess that most of you don't know a lot about encryption. And I don't know a lot about it myself, but I've talked to people who know a lot about it. So what I'm going to do is describe it in 2 chunks in a very simple way. The first is secret key encryption. Probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but let me break it down in the piece parts. Secret key means you have a trusted third party, and they make encryption keys. And they're distributed to users. And then the users will encrypt information using those keys to go from one user to the other user. And it's protected. And you gain some incredible benefits. Authentication, important to know who a communication is coming from. Data integrity, no one's moved a decimal. Non-repudiation, if you send it, you can't deny that you participated in it. It works the same way all the time, and if you need it, it gives you a classification or confidentiality. So those are sort of the basics. Every nation on the globe uses secret key encryption. Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, the British, and I would venture to guess Singapore. Secret key. Trusted third party, make the keys, distribute the keys, and you change them on a periodic basis, and that way you can have secure communications. What happened in the 70s? A number of mathematicians figured out a different way. It's called public key encryption. Now, what does public key encryption mean? Take a big number, really big number, and you factor it. And now you've got two numbers that are parts of the larger number. The artifact is you can take those two numbers and encrypt with one of them, and the only place on the globe you can decrypt is with the other half. Now, why would you call that public key? Because I can make public my public part of the key, and anybody out there who wants to communicate with me can encrypt with my public key, and only I can decrypt with my private key. Now, that was invented in the 70s. A number of organizations that are in the intelligence business were part of the invention, and it scared them. They put the information away because they said, oh no, if that gets out, if people start using that, it would take away our ability to do our mission. And they tried to hide the information. Well, two civilian mathematicians in the United States, Whitfield Diffie and Marty Hellman, made the same discovery, and they were determined to put it out. Now we had a national debate. Who gets to use public key encryption? Now, what's happened to us is almost everyone has adopted public key encryption because it's more efficient and it protects information. It gives you those artifacts I mentioned earlier about non-repudiation, authentication, all the basic benefits of information integrity. But now we're at a point where what do we do about ubiquitous encryption? And what do I mean by ubiquitous encryption? Does everyone get the benefit of encryption for all of their information? Now, most people would say, oh, sure, that's a good thing. What about the law enforcement authorities? Did you read about the debate between the director of the FBI and the head of Apple? The FBI wanted the keys to unlock a phone, to unlock the phone of someone who had been engaged in terrorism, and Apple refused to provide that service. That's the debate that nations are going to have to work their way through over the next few years. And that debate will take place here in Singapore. When you think about public safety, law enforcement, military operations, intelligence operations, most of those activities are conducted in the interest of the citizens to keep them safe and to ensure rule by law. So the organizations that are mounting the strongest argument against ubiquitous encryption include law enforcement, military organizations, and intelligence organizations. So what I ask is, what's the greater common good? Now, you saw my topic. You know enough about the threats to know they're real. The outsider becomes the insider. There are a variety of ways to penetrate inside a network system, phishing or tunneling through, or any number of capabilities that you're all familiar with. So if you presume that a network will be penetrated, and I would just make an assertion based on the experience I've had in my previous life, there isn't a computer system on the globe that cannot be penetrated with sufficient sophistication and persistence. I'll say that again for emphasis. as a user, whether it's personal or you're in an organization or you're in a government agency or wherever it is, there isn't a system on the globe that cannot be penetrated with enough persistence and sophistication. So at some point, the outsider becomes the insider. And then the insider, on a remote control basis, can move through the information system, move computer to computer, hide in the network, and then at their choosing, extract information of value. Now, most of what you know about in the public is driven by criminals. I'm sometimes glad we have the criminals to get us to focus on this issue. The penetration of Target, the penetration of JP Morgan, the penetration of any number of organizations where it was criminal activity attempting to capture and extract value. That's what's got us focused. What is the bigger issue? What is the bigger threat? The bigger threat, in my view, is twofold. First, nation states who want military advantage are building, on average, thousands of zero-day malware attack tools every year. That's thousands every year. They can be put on a laptop, put on an iPhone, put on a thumb drive, very portable, and they're not expensive. Difficult to devise, but they're very portable and not expensive. Now, would a nation state, say they had a disagreement with the United States, would a nation state want to attack the United States in some significant way and disrupt the money supply or turn off electric power or whatever? Well, we're pretty big and we're pretty capable. If they did that, we probably would retaliate. So there's an inherent deterrence in that. Also, in the context of global trade, if you disrupted the power or the money supply, it would cause some problems for an opposing nation state. So there's an inherent deterrence in the fact that these capabilities exist. Now, if they're so portable and so maneuverable, how long until some of them find their way into a group I would identify as extremists? Radical groups who want to change the world order. Now, some of you may have heard me speak yesterday, and if you're hearing this a second time, I apologize, but I want to capture this fact because most people at some point think about or worry about money. Money is the medium of exchange that allows us to enjoy all the benefits that are here in Singapore. It's a medium of exchange for which we have confidence, for which we can buy services or derive contracts or build buildings or build subways or whatever it is we do. It's all captured in the context of that unit of measure which we all agree to. Today that tends to be the dollar. At some point in the future that could change, but for the moment it's a dollar. So what happens when you appreciate the fact that the entire U.S. economy is $16 trillion a year, maybe 16.5 now. That's a pretty big number. It's the world's largest economy. May change in the future, but today it's the largest, most productive economy in the history of the world. 16 trillion a year. I want to emphasize the number, 16 trillion, and the time frame, 1 year. Now, how much money moves through the global banking system every day? Most people are shocked to learn it's $13 trillion. Wow. Now, if you take all of the dollar bills and all the coins and put them in one place, what percentage of the money supply does that represent? The answer is somewhere between 3 and 4%. So where's the other 94%? It's all ones and zeros. It's all in a computer. It's all moving at the speed of light around the globe. And $13 trillion a day clears the banking system. Now, let me zero in on vulnerability. Where's that $13 trillion cleared? A lot of it's cleared here in Singapore. Half of it's cleared in New York City. 1/2 of 13 trillion. 80% of that 1/2 is cleared by one bank. So now if I am an extremist group and I want to change the world order, I want to inflict major damage, what might I target with some of these malware tools, zero-day exploits that I obtained on the black market or I got from some someone who was rogue inside the military where they were building these things. So that is the threat level that we're facing in the future. And we have a whole series of decisions to make about how we're going to shape society and make the rules for the rule of law going forward. And that's the dilemma that we face, because this technology has changed the world. It has changed Singapore, and we are in fact digitally dependent. Now, I want to cause you to just reflect for a moment. I notice most people here in Singapore live in a high-rise. Most of the work is done in a high-rise. A lot of the work is done in front of a laptop. What happens if the power goes out? What happens if you lose power for a sustained period of time here in Singapore? That's what I mean by digital dependence. I'm having the pleasure of staying at the Marina Bay Sands, not far from here, while I'm visiting. I'm on the 47th floor. I'm 73 years old. I can make it up maybe 10 floors. But with no power and no elevator, I don't know if I can get 47 floors. When I get there, I need to talk to my office. I need electric power to run my laptop, to run the cell tower, for which I'm going to talk back to my office. So now what I've just painted a scene for you is absolute total dependence on a money supply which you can't identify other than ones and zeros, and electric power that runs everything about your life, from hot water to lights to elevators to computers to red lights to the society in which you function. So this truly is a point of departure for us as a group of nations about how do we make the rules for the future by which we're going to have to live. Some nation states are engaging in economic espionage to the tune of $500 billion a year. $500 billion a year. If that is left unabated, over time, those that are losing that intellectual capital would be at a significant strategic disadvantage, particularly if innovation and creativity is how they preserve their place in the world. So that is threatened by the current activity of nation states, for which there are no current rules to which we've all agreed. Now, if you participated in some of the earlier discussions, the initiative here in Singapore, the dialogue from those who represent cybersecurity aspects of the various nation states, good dialogue, good beginning, no agreement. We as the globe are going to have to decide how we manage, what the rules are, and what the enforcement mechanisms are for how we continue with this revolutionary technology called the digital infrastructure. You as a person, you as a family, you as a nation, you as a corporation are digitally dependent. And so the future of our society depends on how we get these rules straightened out, agreed to, and enforced. So I hope that is a somewhat useful description of the issues that we're going to be debating over the foreseeable future. The threats are real. Every system can be penetrated. It's only going to increase, and I'll give you one last scary thought as I depart. Most of you are operating under IPv4. I don't like acronyms, so I'll tell you what that means. Internet Protocol version 4. That's about 5 or 6 billion of us connected to something. We're going to IPv6. I don't know what happened to 5. I guess we just didn't like it or we skipped over it, but now we're at IPv6. Now, how many things can you connect to IPv6? That number is so big it's beyond your imagination. It's a unidecillion. Okay, well, what does that mean? It's 10 to the 38th. Okay, what does that mean? It's enough capacity to connect every grain of salt, every grain of sand on the earth to the internet. That's a big number. We're going to IPv6. This is going to become more ubiquitous, more things are connected, and you hear the phrase Internet of Things. It's not the Internet of Things. It's the Internet of everything. So as youngsters, and many of you are very young, this is your future. Start thinking now about how you're going to shape the rules and the laws of government, how we govern this space going into the future, because it's absolutely essential. Thank you for your attention.